Hello everyone. We're going to be taking a look today at some of the things we are forecasting here. I'm meteorologist Lana Foss, and meteorologist Grant Carlton is here with me, and he'll be joining us in a minute. But right now we are dealing with some heat. We do have weather alert days in effect for tomorrow as well as Friday, but thank you for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. We've been looking at all of the heat that we've been seeing the past couple of days, and it looks like it's ramped up even more. But here's a look at some of those forecasted highs that we're seeing today. We're in those mid to low 90s right now, but of course some of those temperatures are going to go up with these records. We're looking pretty close to them. They're in the 100s, and it looks like the heat index is pretty close to those records that we've been seeing the past couple of days. You can see Windsor there with the feels like temperature right now of 105, and that right there brings that heat advisory into effect, and that's something that we're going to be watching for the next couple of days. But something that goes in to these heat advisories, as well as those really high feels like temperatures, is going to be the dew points. Right now we're back in those 70s. If you remember this weekend, we were seeing those dew points really low, as well as those temperatures staying in those 80s, lows in the 60s. But we're back to kind of the normal that we've been seeing the past couple of weeks, with these dew points being really into those 70s, and that brings in that oppressive humidity that traps that heat in that we've been seeing the past couple of days. And that's something that we're tracking because it could be extreme this heat wise. You can see Wednesday today we're going to be around those 90s, and again Thursday 94 there. Some of us could be seeing almost 100s as far as other places in eastern North Carolina. But take a look here at that future heat index going into Thursday. You can see that we're kind of sticking around in those low 100s, some of us there in the 90s. But as you're heading into Friday and into the weekend, we get into some of those higher numbers there, 107, 106, and we could see even excessive heat warnings maybe over the weekend. That's something that we're going to be making sure we keep track of. But and all of this heat, and of course going into the weekend, a lot of people might have plans. You want to make sure that you're staying safe out there. Maybe bring some of those plans indoors if it does get too hot, so enjoy that air conditioning. Take frequent breaks and stay hydrated. Drink plenty of water if you're going to be outside. Even if you're inside, avoid any extraneous activity outside, and take care of your pets and anyone else that's going to be out there with you. And wear light colors. Black tends to keep all that heat in, so wear colors like white or pink or anything like that. But along with this heat, some of us are asking, are we going to be getting any rain that's going to be kind of wetting us down a little bit and bringing those temperatures down? Well, it looks like some of the rain we're going to get, you may just stay in that isolated to scattered. But right now, could be seeing some rain moving into Thursday. Today you could see an isolated shower, but Thursday we're getting into that isolated and scattered range, so maybe that could wet us down a little bit. But we're going to be seeing more of that heat stick with us going into the weekend. But something that we are tracking right now is going to be the tropics. There is a disturbance out there, and meteorologist Grant Carlton is here with me to track those, so I'm going to hand it over to him.
Thank you, Lana. Yeah, it's going to be a hot, humid week ahead of the potential tropical storm or whatever, but going over what it is right now, it's not much. It's just a blob of thunderstorm activity, not really showing any circulation. The tropical wave that we've been tracking behind it has finally caught up, so over the next few days, development is possible as we especially hit the late week and weekend. And do want to emphasize that there's a big question mark on this storm because no circulation has developed yet, so models aren't able to input the correct data. You're going to see inputs or outputs that are all over the place, from Louisiana to the Carolinas. I'm sure you've been seeing the different scenarios. So we're going to run through a few different scenarios here as to what potentially could happen. Many of the models have been showing the Atlantic side of this track here. And again, once it does develop, we'll have a better idea. But a couple things we'll be keeping an eye on is if it does develop earlier, which some models are hinting over the next few days, say by Friday or even Saturday, it's going to try to lift north and get captured by high pressure offshore a little bit earlier, which would bring us impacts. But those impacts will vary based on 50 miles. Just 50 miles can make a big difference on what that could mean for us here in Eastern Carolina. So that red line would be, quote unquote, the worst case scenario, but that also depends on the intensity of what might come. If it stays further offshore, we may dodge some of the worst impacts, such as coastal inundation or strong winds. So again, we'll be keeping an eye out for a track that hugs a little bit closer to our coast here as we head into early to mid next week. There are also other models that are showing more of a westerly track and more of impacts to Florida and the Gulf of Mexico. So we're going to go through that here. That is going to depend if it develops a little bit later. So we're going to start off with the African dust, it has kept us really quiet through the month of July. But you can see that break there in the African dust. This system will have a bit more moisture to work with here, which will also be one of the fuels in helping getting it going. So you see that X where it's at here, potentially just now, again, a cluster of thunderstorms, and you can see a tiny little kink in the winds. That is that tropical wave that has met up with it. And as we progress throughout the rest of the week, this big high pressure to the north will continue to steer it to the west. This is the Euro model, so notice that it does still have that kink. In fact, it gets a little bit more progressive as we head into the weekend. A stronger storm starting to develop by the weekend, and again, that will allow it to lift north. So that's the Atlantic track that we're talking about. And early to mid next week, especially Monday time frame, that's when it could be passing our latitude. So again, if it's 50 miles further off to the east offshore, that'll bring less impacts here for us. But if it's a little bit closer and hugs the coast, that could bring some coastal inundation and some strong winds, especially along the coast. Here's another scenario. This is the GFS, the American model. As we head throughout the next few days into the weekend, notice there's not much of a kink in the winds, so not that much of development as it interacts with the land through the Caribbean. But by the time it hits the weekend, it allows for it to move further west into the Gulf. Those waters are very warm in the Gulf, and that could allow for something to spark up a little bit stronger for the Panhandle and Gulf of Mexico. Same timing, this is Monday, but again, this is the GFS model that has it here in the Gulf of Mexico, and the Euro model has it up here. So you could see the wide array of uncertainty with the tracks here. What we will be keeping an eye on, though, is how early it develops. So the earlier it develops, the more northerly turn it will have and could impact us, or it could stay far off our coast where it could bring us little to no impacts. The GFS version will also have to keep an eye out for this high pressure that rebuilds back in and slows down what could potentially be a tropical storm down near Florida, and that could give them big impacts in terms of the coastal inundation and rainfall. After that, a lot of uncertainty. Just want to emphasize again that by the weekend we'll have a much clearer picture on this. Once a storm starts to develop, models have a much clearer picture of it in terms of the data that it's working with. We do know that up next on the list is Debbie. That would be our fourth named storm of the season. So again, it's been a very dry, quiet month in the tropics due to that dust, especially that big high pressure. We are heading into the climatological peak of hurricane season, so regardless, it's important to prepare as if any of these could be impacting us. Have that hurricane kit ready, and please pay close attention to the forecast. Lana and I, Donnie and Les, will keep you all updated every day. You can visit our website or visit our app to get the latest forecast when and where you need it. I'm meteorologist Grant Carlton. Everybody stay cool, and we'll have more updates later at News 12 at 5 and 6. 12 at 5 and 6.